Hey guys, welcome back. Alright, so today we're going to try to build our fuel tank, fuel cell. So here's all the pieces laid out. We're going to try an assembly technique that I just kind of made up, and I don't know if it's going to work. But this is basically the bottom, the front and the back, and the two sides. And what I did was I put tape. It's kind of hard to see, but you can see these little strips of blue painter's tape. Yeah, there's one. So I just took tape and kind of taped it to where, I'll show you. See how there's like a tiny gap? If I were to lift this up, it basically pulls it up tight into the right spot, which is why there's a tiny gap right now. And the hope is that I'm going to be able to fold this up and it'll hold it in shape, and then I can put the top on. The top's back over there, and then tape it. And the goal is I want to build a box and tape it all shut. And then you see this little hose hanging here. Well, this runs across and it's kind of rigged up because I didn't have the right stuff, but I've got a dual regulator set up. So one goes to the TIG welder, and then this one, it's kind of janky, but it's just argon. So I didn't have the fittings, I taped it. But that's going to feed argon, and that's why I popped a hole right here, is we're going to pop the hose in here, and once it's all taped up, hopefully it'll be like roughly sort of sealed, and then we're going to turn the argon on, let it fill up for a few minutes, and hopefully that'll be good enough that we can start welding this. And because when you're welding stainless, it's really important to have a back purge. I've done it both ways. So if we go to this piece, let me get some light going. Okay, so this is a piece of pipe where I did not back purge, and I'll zoom in, maybe this will show up. There it is. See that crustiness poking up? They call that sugaring. Basically, it's the metal is oxidizing. Stainless steel is not, it's not that it doesn't rust, or it's not that it doesn't corrode, it's just resistant to corrosion. So there's different types of stainless, and different ones, like Inconel, for example, has really high corrosion resistance. Whereas this stuff's like 304, so it's got some, but it's not immune by any means. So what happens there is it got too hot and it oxidized, which you don't want. That makes for a weak weld. Just overall not good. So the idea is you put argon. Argon is a noble gas. It doesn't, as far as we know, it doesn't react with anything, I don't think. So basically the metal can get hot and it can't oxidize because there's no oxygen. All there is argon, and argon just kind of chills and nothing happens. So hopefully this works. Anyway, we're gonna, looks like we're pretty much set up, so we're gonna try to fold this thing up and see if my tape idea is a win or fail. Okay guys, check this out. So this actually worked really well. So we used the tape to hold everything into position, and as you can see the fitment, I mean, this worked excellent. Now it did take a little bit of tweaking, you know, like for example, you see that big clamp going across there? This thing did your classic, instead of being a rectangle, it kind of got an angle, and I had to squeeze it at the end to get it straight. Not a big deal. Fixed it pretty quickly. But yeah, this is what we were hoping for. I mean, there's really no gaps. Now we've got that hole in there. We haven't done any back purging yet, but that we can't, it wasn't really feasible until all the walls are in. So now that you have a structure, we're going to pop the hose in here, fill it up with argon, and then start welding. Now this hole, I don't know if this is actually going to be like a fuel outlet. Worst case, I'll just plug that hole when we're done. But I just drilled it for now. I've got this little silicone hose that goes over to my regulator, and it's a tight fit, so I'll pop it in and we'll get this filled up with argon. But I'm hoping it welds better. It definitely, you can see I've got a stainless brush here, so right before I put this last piece on, I went in there and brushed all the welds that I could to get what little bit of sugaring was happening. But I'm sure a little bit happened on this. Kind of unavoidable when it's not fully back purged. But anyway, that's going to be our next step. We're going to clean all the stuff off of here with a wire wheel, and then get it back purged and begin welding. Hopefully this goes pretty good, but this method of tacking it up and everything, like it didn't really warp. This is probably the best I've ever done. I don't know what I did different, but this didn't really warp on me, so pretty happy. I think it's going to look nice when it's all finished. So now we get to welding. All right, so this took several hours, but we just got the fuel tank basically welded up. I don't have the mounting tabs on here. I don't have the filler neck or the fuel in and out ports. I don't even think I ordered those. but the actual container itself is fully welded. And by fully, I mean, I don't know if it leaks or not, but there's seemingly a weld bead everywhere. So I'm going to say overall this actually went pretty damn well. I will show you. If you look carefully, if you look at it just the right way, see those little waves? The sheet metal warps slightly. It's only noticeable when you get up close. When you back up, it just looks like a fuel tank. But there's a little bit of warpage. I don't really care. It's not going to make any difference. But it does, you know, doesn't look perfect, but I'm not a pro, so this is what I got. What I can say is I fully back purged it, so you can see my hose going in here. It's actually still running. If we come over here to the, this is for the TIG welder, this is for the back purge. You can see the little balls hovering over here. On the other side, it's down at 0. So I've been actually backed it off to only like 5 or 6 cubic feet an hour, and that's all it took. So, but that's because I started off at 10, and as I started welding, I backed it off. I will show you one thing. See right here? What I did was I drilled a tiny hole there. There's an important reason. Some of y'all probably already know, but basically if you try to weld it shut and you don't have a hole, it'll blow as you try to weld it. That molten metal will just get blown out of here and you won't actually be able to weld it shut. I've done that before. So you got to have a vent hole, and that hole right now, like I can feel the argon pouring out of that hole if I put my finger by it, which is a good sign. But anyway, very happy with this. This took, let's see, it's almost 9 p.m. So this took several hours to weld. Now, granted, I did TIG weld the entire thing, and I also used a wire wheel to clean all the welds after welding. They didn't look like this right afterwards. I've got on my TIG torch, this isn't really the correct cup for this, but I've got this little baby torch with a little bitty cup. It's good for saving argon, but if you weld it basically doesn't shield very good. So you have to go back and knock all the oxidation off the top. But hey, got the fuel tank welded, and it's back purged on the inside, so the inside should be in really good shape as well. I'm very happy with this. Not perfect, but for me, very happy. And also, I got me a stainless steel fuel tank. I went to the track. I actually went to the racetrack last night. Went and saw a bunch of fast stuff, and one thing I can say is almost everybody runs aluminum fuel tanks. Which if you're running methanol, you know, methanol is super corrosive. That's not really a good idea. So you'd have to anodize them. And I've actually been on a team years ago where we did that. We anodized the inside of our tanks, and we actually had trouble with that because if you think about it, you got to get the inside super, super clean so that the anodizing will stick to the metal. And the place that we had do it, I guess they didn't get it clean enough, or I'm not really sure, but we ended up with our anodizing flaking off and getting sucked into the fuel filters and clogging up our fuel filters. So our car basically couldn't get fuel. It'd start running lean. We're losing fuel pressure, and finally we pulled the filter and it was just full of anodizing. So that's like double bad, because now you're plugging up your fuel, you know, you're like restricting fuel, and you're not protecting the tank you intended to protect. So that's why we went with stainless. Stainless cost way more. It's harder to weld, and it's triple the weight of aluminum. So a lot of reasons not to run stainless, but guess what? It's got really high corrosion resistance, and as we had talked about, we're putting this in the front of the car. A lot of reasons to do that, but because it's stainless, if you ever get in a wreck, it's structurally a lot stronger than aluminum. So that's another reason for doing it. Anyway, that's going to wrap this up. I think that's going to wrap this for today. But I guess our next steps on the tank, I've got to get the mounting tabs put on, and I probably need to go order the bosses for the fuel so we can get those installed as well. And then probably do a leak test. And I guess the very last thing I'll do is probably weld that vent hole. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this, and until next time, y'all take it easy.